بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. I'll start by greeting you all with the best of greetings, the greeting of the people of Jannah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brother Hussein brought me memories of when I was young. One of the first times I led in public, I led at someone's wedding. And the first rak'ah, I read Ayat al-Kursi and I made more mistakes than you made. So that sometimes the nerves take over you, and ayahs and ayat and the Quran that you know and you recite regularly, you will make a mistake that you don't often ever make. There are imams, great imams, qurra, and we know even like the imams that wrote, or the imams that compiled the Quran and the different qira'at from them, there are narrations of them making mistakes. And Imam al-Kasai rahmatullahi alayhi, he speaks about one of his accomplices or one of his acquaintances at that time. He said him and this man, who were both scholars in hadith or both scholars of Quran and recitation, met in the gathering of Harun al-Rashid. So Imam al-Kasai led Maghrib and he made a mistake in Surah al-Kafirun. So this man commented from behind, he said, Imam of the Qurra makes a mistake in al-Kafirun. Then he said he led Isha, he made a mistake in Fatiha. So it happens. Don't think any of us are hifd is better because the brother made a mistake. The thing is, when you make a mistake, do not allow it to hold you back. Move on. The Imams of the Haram make mistakes in simple surahs. The great Qurra of the past made mistakes. Do not be held back by a mistake, especially in the Quran. The shaitan will try to use this against you and say, or try to discourage the other younger brothers. Don't recite in public, you might make a mistake. No. Use this as motivation. I'm going to continue with my hifd. I'm going to continue using the platform to recite in public, inshallah. Now, going into the topic of today. It's an important topic for many reasons. One is because it's the essential belief of every single Muslim. The first article of our religion, the first thing when it comes to your Islam is testifying that there is no Lord worthy of worship except Allah. Nothing can be built on top of your Islam if you do not have La ilaha illallah. You can pray, you can fast, you can give zakah, you can go to Hajj if you try to. You can believe in the prophets, believe in the angels, you can believe in the books, you can believe in the Day of Judgment, you can believe in the qadr, khayri wa sharri. If you do not believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, all of that means nothing. Add to it, it's a question that every single one of us will have to answer someday. In your grave, when your angels come to you, the first question they will ask you is, Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? A question that every single person has to answer. And if you do not come to know and understand who your Lord is in this dunya, you will come to know and understand His might and His power in the akhirah. You are, as a Muslim, unable to complete your ibadat if you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. How can you pray if you do not know who you're praying to? Or if you do not know who you're praying to? How can you fast if you do not know why you are withholding yourself from food and water? How can you give zakah for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal? How can you love someone for the sake of Allah? How can you hate for the sake of Allah? How can you visit someone for the sake of Allah? How can you do whatever you do if you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is? This is the essence of every single crisis that we as Muslims face. Not knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is. Whether it's from a young age when we're studying academically, when they start to introduce theories such as Darwinism, the Big Bang Theory, taking away and negating some of the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, such as that Allah is Al-Khaliq, Allah is the Creator. Or whether it's when we grow up old enough to start working and obtaining and sustaining ourselves, we fall into a system that tells you your hard work is rewarded by a salary and a promotion, and you take the equation of God out of the secular system. If you are sick, go and seek help from a doctor. trying to disassociate the cure and al-shifa to Allah Azza wa Jal, who is al-shafi. Rizq, disassociate from Allah Azza wa Jal. Watchfulness, power, might, every single element of it. That is the biggest danger and challenge that Muslims in the West face, is not knowing Allah Azza wa Jal, or not knowing sufficient of the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, leading to not properly understanding who Allah Azza wa Jal is, and not giving Allah Azza wa Jal His true and ultimate might and qadr that He deserves of. Qadr. In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran about 3 different types of people, or 3 different examples of people that have not given Allah Azza wa Jal His due right. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-An'am, وَمَا قَدَرَ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ إِذْ قَالُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَى بَشَرٍ مِّن شَيْءٍ. They did not give Allah Azza wa Jal His due estimate when they negated that Allah Azza wa Jal revealed any revelation. So people did not give Allah Azza wa Jal His due right when they said Allah couldn't have revealed to Ibrahim, Allah couldn't have revealed to Musa, Allah couldn't have spoken to Musa directly. These were claims of nations of the past. When the Prophet ﷺ came with his message, people negated that this was from Allah Azza wa Jal. They attributed it to poetry. They said he's a sorcerer, he's a magician. They said he has the tales of the people of the past. But they did not give Allah Azza wa Jal His due right in saying that He is the one that revealed. In Surah Al-Hajj, Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَقَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. This comes in a passage of ayahs where Allah Azza wa Jal challenges. And the beauty of the Quran is there are challenges that have been there in the Quran that withstood the test of time. How do we know the Quran is a miracle and the word of Allah Azza wa Jal? Is in the Quran Allah sets certain challenges. From these challenges is He said, if this book is the creation of man, then bring something like it. Then He said, bring 10 surahs like it. Then 1 surah, nothing. And here Allah Azza wa Jal sets a challenge, where He says that the wing of a fly, وَإِنْ يَسْلُبْهُمُ الذُّبَابُ شَيْئًا لَا يَسْتَنقِذُهُ. That if a fly was to take something from these children of Adam that claim and disassociate and try to limit the power and might of Allah Azza wa Jal, they would not be able to claim it back. And then the third time where Allah Azza wa Jal tells us and reminds that the children of Adam did not give Allah Azza wa Jal His due and proper estimate and right and status, is where Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about the Day of Judgment. He says, وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبْضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. They did not give Allah Azza wa Jal His due right. And on that day, the earth will be rolled onto his palm, onto Allah Azza wa Jal's palm. And so will the heavens be. And verily, Allah Azza wa Jal, and might and glory be to Allah Azza wa Jal from that which they associate partners with. If you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is in this dunya, you will get to know who Allah Azza wa Jal is in the akhirah. But as a Muslim, as an individual, why is it important for someone to know who Allah Azza wa Jal is? You cannot worship Allah Azza wa Jal without knowing Him. You cannot love Allah Azza wa Jal without knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is. You cannot claim to do things for the sake of Allah if you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. You cannot follow the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal if you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. And I would say the biggest danger of all is that you will end up falling into associating partners with Allah Azza wa Jal if you do not know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. You're someone that your job is conflicting with your religion. You have a job that requires you to miss your salah. You have a job that requires you to serve alcohol. You have a job that requires you to deal and work interest in riba. And then you as an individual are hesitant to quit your job because this is my provision. Do you not know that Allah Azza wa Jalla is the provider? Do you not know that Allah Azza wa Jalla is al-Razzaq? How can you ever seek provision without going through Allah Azza wa Jalla and seeking Allah Azza wa Jalla's support and help? People sometimes will work a job and say, you know what, I need this for my family, I can't afford to live, even if it's haram. And we've said this before, people confuse wealth and money with rizq. You may have that money. And some people might share even personal examples. They are earning a comfortable salary, but there is zero barakah in their life. He earns his money from here, 3,000-4,000 pounds a month. A car crash. He has to go put all of his money away. Something happens to his sofa, he needs to go buy a new one. He needs something like this. This happened. His wife needs that. His kids need this. And even though all of this money is coming in, there's zero barakah in this rizq. And then you find someone that is living on a very minimalistic lifestyle. Very minimum. Maybe even on benefits. Believing in Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that provides. And he's comfortable. He has the element of wisa', like in his life, he feels comfortable, he feels that he's happy, he's sustained by Allah Azza wa Jal. And the opposite can be true. There are people on big salaries that believe in Allah Azza wa Jal and are enjoying this, and people that have nothing, that have the element of discontentment with Allah Azza wa Jal, that are suffering even with their rizq. But I want to ask you a question. Who's smarter? You or the pigeon? Who's smarter? The insan. Son of Adam is smarter. We can all agree on this. Some of you guys seem a bit unsure what's happening. But if you look at the pigeon, an example of the bird. Have you ever seen a bird with a fridge that it stores food in? Anyone? Anyone ever seen a bird with a savings account? Why? Because the birds have the element of understanding that Allah Azza wa Jal provides. That bird wakes up in the morning not knowing where its next meal is going to come from. But it will go about his day and it will be sustained. Allah will provide for that bird just like He provides for the fish in the ocean, just like He provides for the other animals, just like He will provide for you and I. If a bird can believe in Allah Azza wa Jal and go about his day believing that Allah Azza wa Jal will sustain it, does that bird know Allah Azza wa Jal more than you? Or do you believe in Allah Azza wa Jal more than that bird? Rhetorically asking. That's the level of when you know Allah Azza wa Jal. How? How can you get to know Allah Azza wa Jal? How can we actually know and understand who Allah Azza wa Jal is? The first thing is knowing Allah Azza wa Jal through His names and His attributes. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. To Allah Azza wa Jal is His beautiful names and lofty attributes. Call upon Allah Azza wa Jal by these names. Call upon Allah Azza wa Jal by these names. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, and so often we hear these ayat recite. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us at the end of Surah Al-Hajr, هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. What does every single one of these names mean? And when do you use these names? Do you know every single one of Allah Azza wa Jal's names? Do you know the names that Allah Azza wa Jal told us? Do you understand what these names mean? These names are an explanation of Allah Azza wa Jal, His might, His power, His attributes, His ability, His love, His kindness, and so many more things. Have you read these names? Have you understood these names? There are so many benefits to knowing Allah Azza wa Jal's names and understanding the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. And from these benefits of knowing, and so many of the scholars of the past, they speak about knowing the names of Allah Azza wa Jal and what the benefits of them are, and we'll come back to it in a minute inshallah. But these names of Allah Azza wa Jal, 99 names, every single one of these names that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, inna lillahi tis'an wa tis'ina isman mi'atan illa wahid, 100 less one, meaning 99. Man ahsaha dakhal al-jannah. Whoever is able to know and accumulate and understand and memorize what these names are, they will enter Jannah. If you can take one of the explanations of these hadith, is that you know these names and you apply these names. Al-Imam al-Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi, he speaks about, in one of his books, Ad-Dawa wad-Dawa, he speaks about when it comes to the element of people not having their dua being answered. And many of us struggle with this problem that we call upon Allah Azza wa Jal and we feel like our dua is not being answered. And when he comments about this, he said, anyone that calls upon Allah Azza wa Jal using His names as they should be used amongst the context, that is one of the reasons that your dua is more likely to be answered. What does this mean? You have a sickness, you feel weak. You don't call upon Allah Azza wa Jal, say, oh Allah, you are the first, cure my sickness. No. Say, Allahumma anta shafi la shifa illa shifa'uk shifa'an la yughadiru saqama. Oh Allah, you are the one that provides cure. There is no cure like your cure. The right use of that name. You are using the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, Al-Latif, Al-Wadud, where there is need for these names to be used. You're making dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to aid you with an exam. And you know Allah Azza wa Jal is the most knowledgeable, Al-Alim. Using that name where applicable. You don't come say, oh Allah, the most loving, provide me with knowledge that's beneficial to me. No, you say, oh Allah, the most knowledgeable, provide me with knowledge that's beneficial to me. Using the names of Allah Azza wa Jal where they need to be used. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us that these names of Allah Azza wa Jal are there for us to call upon Allah Azza wa Jal. And these names are unique to Allah. No one is in comparison to Him. No one comes close. No one is able to ever attribute himself to the same attributes or the same names as Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen for Himself. The second way that you come close to understanding and knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is through what Allah encouraged us in the Quran to do. In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. That verily in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the day and the night are signs for those people of sharp minds. Those who remember Allah Azza wa Jal standing and sitting. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, قُلْ انظُرُوا ماذا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Go and look at that which is in the heavens and the earth. Ponder, reflect, think. Looking and pondering upon what Allah Azza wa Jal has created allows you many benefits. From that is when you look and understand that Allah Azza wa Jal created these things and the complexity of that which Allah Azza wa Jal has created, it shows you the ease of your life and your affairs. Look at the heavens. Look at the circulation of the moon and the sun. It's been going on from the beginning of the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. There is not a single day that the moon has failed to do its job. There is not a single day that the sun has failed to do its job. There is not a single day that the moon or the sun have come out of place. And if they were to do and not be precise in their circulation and their location, this universe will cease to exist. What about your life? It's far less complex than the sun and the moon. It's far less complex than the seven heavens. It's far less complex than the depths of the ocean that Allah Azza wa Jal allows and controls. Allah encourages us, look at that which is around you. If you were to look, you would come to understand that verily there is a creator that has everything in order. There is a higher power. Ponder, reflect, think. Islam, unlike other religions, encourages and challenges you to think, challenges you to ponder, challenges you to find the element of belief based on that which you see and based on that which you conclude. I was recently traveling and I met someone and I'm speaking to him, and he said, oh yeah, I converted from Hinduism to Christianity. I said, interesting. Why Christianity? He said, because I felt a spirit. I go, what was this spirit? He said, no, I just felt something. I go, so I am going to tell you, accept Islam. I'm not going to tell you accept Islam because I have a feeling of such and such. No, I'm going to tell you accept Islam because there's no Lord worthy of worship except Allah. Even as a Christian, who created the world? They will tell you the Father. Who's the one that's going to judge? The Father. Who's the one that even gave life to Jesus? Isa, the Father. Then why do you worship Isa? Why do you worship Jesus? I said to him, but can you convince me your religion is true? He goes, oh, there's a feeling. I go, no, you have that feeling. I don't have the feeling. Do you have any conviction, anything, any proof that you can tell me that Isa was the Son of God, that Jesus was the Son of God? Nothing. No proof. There's a feeling. What does this feeling lead you to believe? That he died for my sins. So your God died? No. He was raised again for my sins. But he died for everyone's sin. So I was like, you yourself are confusing the concept of your belief. But Islam encourages you. Ponder, think, reflect, challenges people. The third example, or the third way of knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is looking and reflecting about the stories of the people of the past. Look at the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where Allah Azza wa Jal tells us about Ibrahim alayhi salam in two folds. One is when he found his people worshipping idols, and he destroyed these idols, and he said, قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا, who's done this to our idols? Then they say, قالوا وجدنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم قال فأتوا به على أعين الناس لعلهم. And then they asked him, they said, أنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم? Is this your doing? Is this what you did to our idols? He said, the big idol's the one that did it. Ask away. They said, do you know that they do not speak? He said, then you worship that which doesn't speak. You worship that which couldn't protect itself and couldn't push away harm. How can it push away harm from yourself? From you? How can it protect you? It can't speak, it can't communicate. How can he provide any assistance to you? And then Ibrahim alayhi salam goes on. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, that we show Ibrahim alayhi salam signs of the heavens and the earth. And then when the night comes, he sees a star. And the people are worshipping the stars, the moon and the sun. He looks at this star, he said, this could be my Lord. As the people are watching, the star eventually disappears, and the light of the star dims in comparison to the light of the moon. He looks at the moon, he said, this could be my Lord. The sun rises, dawn breaks, the moon disappears, and this bright sky, the bright sun shines in the sky. He said, هذا ربي هذا أكبر. This is the Lord. This is the biggest one of them all. فلما أفل قال لا أحب الآفلين. When he disappeared, he said, this cannot be my Lord. And as the people are watching, he said, إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا, that I turn my Lord to the one that created the heaven, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything that you worship. Look at the stories of the people of the past to know and understand who Allah Azza wa Jal is. Look at Musa alayhi salam. After so many years with Fir'aun, and after all of the signs and the miracles that Allah Azza wa Jal gave him, Musa alayhi salam flees with the people of Bani Israel. They reach the Red Sea. And the people are in panic. The army of Fir'aun is behind them, and the people of Musa alayhi salam are afraid. And as in that moment of panic, the belief that Musa alayhi salam has in Allah Azza wa Jal, he says, كَلَّا إِنَّ مَعِي رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينِ, that my Lord is with me, He's going to guide me. Allah Azza wa Jal that aided Musa in that moment. If you were to truly believe in him and know and Allah Azza wa Jal is with you, who's going to guide you, how, if he did not let down Musa alayhi salam, he will never let you down. Allah Azza wa Jal, the one in the story of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as he leaves Mecca, going to Medina, and he goes through the cave and he's hiding in the cave, him and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and the people of Quraysh are walking over the cave. And if anyone's ever seen and been to the cave, you will know that the entry point is at the top of the cave. So you descend into the cave. So if you look up, you see the entrance of the cave. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu narrates that he said, if they looked down under their feet, they would have seen us. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is in a state of worry, a state of panic. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him, he said, "O Abu Bakr, ما ظنك باثنين الله ثالثهما." What thought do you have about two? Allah is the third. Allah is accompanying them. If Allah protected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who truly believed in him in that moment, if you believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, why would you ever seek protection from anyone else or anywhere else? Allah Azza wa Jal, the one who protected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam then, no doubt can protect our brothers and sisters in Gaza today. Allah Azza wa Jal, the one that saved Musa alayhi salam, no doubt against the tyrant of Fir'aun and the tyranny of Fir'aun, no doubt can save our brothers and sisters in Gaza from the tyrants of Israel. No doubt. All it takes is believing in Allah Azza wa Jal. Musa alayhi salam's belief did not shake for 1 minute, did not shake for a moment. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not for 1 second doubt his decision. That's the true belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. The more you ponder, the more you think, the more you reflect, the more you look at the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, it will lead you to the same conclusion, that there is a higher power, that there is a God, that Allah Azza wa Jal exists. There are many people that are born and raised as Muslims that have never had the challenge of finding who Allah Azza wa Jal is. You're born Muhammad, Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, and you're raised in a family that tells you to instill and enact the actions of the Muslims. So you pray, so you fast, so you observe Ramadan, you give your sadaqah and zakah where possible, without ever pondering and thinking and reflecting about who Allah Azza wa Jal is. And then you come to college, you come to university, you walk in the city center and there is someone shouting with a microphone, challenging you about the basics of Islam. Basic questions. And it's sad to see that sometimes Muslims that are born and raised as Muslims aren't able to answer them. Questions such as, if God was good, then why is there war and suffering in the world? Very common question. Many Muslims struggle to answer a question like this. Many Muslims struggle to hold up their belief in front of the doubts of the atheists. Many Muslims struggle to respond. Why? Because we skip the critical part of pondering, of reflecting, of knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is. Regardless of how long you've lived, regardless of how much you've practiced, there is always a need for you to know about Allah Azza wa Jal, to read His names, His attributes, to come to the conclusion that it's Allah Azza wa Jal who created the heavens and the earth. Reaffirm your faith. Even Ibrahim alayhi salam, and this is not me saying he had any doubts, because he didn't. Even Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah Azza wa Jal to show him the signs of reinstilling and re-bringing in life, and Allah Azza wa Jal showed him these signs. Allah gave His prophets all of these miracles, and we as Muslims are in need to know and understand who Allah Azza wa Jal is, and that's the first benefit. The second benefit of this journey of thinking, reflecting and pondering is the ease of mind and the comfort that comes with knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is. Is that tranquility, that peace that ascends a person, that rest that you have, that you know, Inna ma'ya Rabbi sayahdeen, that my Lord is with me, He's going to guide me, that Allah is with me, He's going to protect me. The element of doubt that you ever have, that sickness that you have, you know Allah Azza wa Jal is capable of curing it. The financial struggles, the worries, you know Allah Azza wa Jal is able to overcome them. I asked this question last week and I ask it again. Why did these companions of the Prophet ﷺ spend half the night praying? Why did they read the Quran so many times in Ramadan? Why did some of them read the Quran every 3 days? And they would come to the Prophet ﷺ and they would ask to read the Quran in less than 3 days. Not because they wanted to put themselves through that, because they enjoyed putting themselves through that. Because they knew who Allah Azza wa Jal is. If you know who Allah Azza wa Jal is, praying to Allah Azza wa Jal no longer becomes an obligation. It becomes your comfort and your peace. Just like the Prophet ﷺ telling Bilal, Arihna biha ya Bilal. That feeling of peace, tranquility. The third benefit of knowing who Allah Azza wa Jal is having khashya, fear of Allah Azza wa Jal, as you should fear Him. In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal in so many places tells us that Allah Azza wa Jal is the most forgiving. إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَشَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ وَإِنَّهُ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. That your Lord is most powerful in terms of His punishment. But verily, He is most forgiving and He is most merciful. The element of fear, that worry, that when Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anh stands at the grave, he cries and he weeps. And they ask him, they say to him, "Oh Uthman, you cry and you weep like you never cry, you never weep any other time." He said that I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say that the qabr is awwalu manazil al-akhirah, that this grave is the first steps of the akhirah. That anything that comes after this grave is, if it's good in the grave, then it's good after it. Anything that comes in the grave that's bad, everything that comes after it is evil. This fear of Allah Azza wa Jal that leads Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, one of the most powerful men and one of the best people to ever walk the face of the earth, tremble in fear. So much so that he loses consciousness reading the ayah, وَقِفُوهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ. Hold them, because they are going to be held accountable. That fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran about a certain group of people, تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَضَاجِعِ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. That they tremble in fear in their bed. They are unable to lay rest. They move from one side to side, calling upon their Lord out of hope and out of fear. Hope in His rahmah, fear in His punishment. There are so many benefits to knowing who Allah Azza wa Jalla is, and perhaps concluding with the last one, is that if you know who Allah Azza wa Jalla is, you will love to meet Allah Azza wa Jalla. من أحب لقاء الله أحب الله لقاءه. Whoever loves to meet Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah will love to meet him. ومن كره لقاء الله كره الله لقاءه. That whoever dislikes to meet Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah will dislike to meet him. There is no greater virtue that anyone can obtain than meeting Allah Azza wa Jalla, and He is pleased with him And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to be pleased with all of us.
Ameen.
The last thing I would finish on is that knowing Allah Azza wa Jal improves your ibadah, improves your worship to Allah Azza wa Jal. If you know who Allah Azza wa Jal is, you will pray differently to someone that doesn't know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. If you know who Allah Azza wa Jal is, you will speak to people and deal with people differently to someone who doesn't know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. When you know and understand and fear who Allah Azza wa Jal is, everything in your life changes. Especially your servitude and the quality of your ibadah to Allah Azza wa Jal. You know and you love Allah Azza wa Jal, you would want to read the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. You would want to come closer to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. You would want to pray. You would want to wake up in the last third of the night. You would want to stand up in Taraweeh. You would want to give to Allah Azza wa Jal and donate whatever you have. Whoever knows Allah Azza wa Jal will turn to Allah Azza wa Jal in times of ease, and in terms of difficulty he will find Allah Azza wa Jal. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Abdullah ibn Abbas, Ya ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat, ihfadillah yahfadk. O young boy, let me teach you, O young man, let me teach you some words. Know who Allah Azza wa Jal. Remember who Allah Azza wa Jal is. And there is no accurate translation to ihfadillah yahfadk. Remember who Allah Azza wa Jal is. Know who Allah Azza wa Jal is. And He will remember you. He will know who you are. تعرف على الله في الرخاء يعرفك في الشدة. Know Allah Azza wa Jal in times of ease. You will find Allah Azza wa Jal in times of hardship. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us from those servants that know Him, that fear Him, that worship Him as He should be worshipped. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us all to meet with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Hawd and to see his face on the Day of Judgment. هذا والله أعلى وأعلم ونسبة العلم إليه أسلم. Anything good I've said is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Anything bad I've said is from the evils of myself and the shaitan. If there are any questions, we'll take them. If not, inshallah, we will conclude here. Jazakumullah khair.